Hey everyone, happy Friday. Let me switch scene. Here we go. And admit everybody. Oh, so you can join the Zoom call if you want to ask a question.
Bon, effectivement, pour moi, c'était un chic type parce que dès qu'on lui a proposé, il a dit mais évidemment, si je peux parrainer des jeunes, c'est génial, etc. Il est en 21 octobre, il nous prévient, il nous dit bon, j'ai une mauvaise réputation quelque part. Donc,
Boy, I don't know what Chris is saying, but he's sure saying it with passion.
Yeah, it is. I'm like, okay, I have to learn French today.
Hello,
Hey,
hey, how about
Hi, everybody.
hey, John and Scott and Chris and Mike and
Hello.
Hubert.
hello, everybody. A lot of people here today.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's see.
How's everyone doing? Why don't we start off, Isaias, with just the little bit about the forum. I saw you just put a little update there, but it's very interesting, and you know where the future is coming and going.
Yeah, it's good to know about these guys. I'm sharing my screen if you can see it. So remember that we discussed the fact that AutoHotkey V2 has been released, blah, 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 and we said, hey, jump the ship because we don't know what the changes are going to bring. And exactly as we were predicting, now if you go to the forums, you will notice that now the ask for help section is just for V2 or newer. So right now, if you go to the ask for help section of the AutoHotkey forums, you will not find V1 code at all. Now, we were at the beginning, I was just looking around and I was like, that's weird. I don't see anything for V1 because before on the ask for help here at the bottom, you could see a sub forum that said help for V2 scripts, right? Now I do have this, but I don't have the sub forum for V1. What they did is that they moved it to this section that is called version 1 and older. And this is where you would go ahead and find the ask for help for V1, the tutorials, the tips and tricks and everything. So it has been moved away from the main section that we had before. So it's not that you cannot find the code anymore, but again, more and more we're seeing this transition in which you're not going to be able to find the information just as you did before. Before you just went to ask for help and that was it. Now, yeah, you have to go through different hoops. And at some point, it's very likely that it's going to be a little bit harder to find older code. People are going to start posting more and more conversion scripts, or hey, can you grab this code and make it V2? So our course on switching from V1 to V2 might come in very handy here. But this is the thing that we have to take into consideration. If you're not really thinking about switching to V2, it's very likely that you're going to be forced, codes around it, to do that because the code is going to be V2 most of the time. So right now, just assume that if you entered into the help section, you have to make sure, you have to understand that most of the code that you're going to see there is now around V2. So just keep that into consideration, guys. I don't know if you guys have any opinion on the matter, like if there's anything that annoys you or what, but when I mentioned that to Joe, I was like, yeah, you're gonna hate this one. Like V1 code is nowhere to be found. But yeah, that's something that you have to now keep in mind.
I see Tyler on YouTube was just saying hi, but uautomate said he just started using V2 yesterday, and it's exactly what we say. It's a lot better for me as a programmer, right? Like right there, yeah. When you're a programmer, you're gonna love V2.
Yeah, 99% of the people who actually love it is because they have been programming for a long time and they feel that some things are easier to do there. That's right.
And then he also mentioned the V2 UIA library is much more powerful and a lot more options. Yeah, Descolada has done a crazy amount of stuff to it that makes it really powerful. Which, by the way,
yeah,
for the heroes, tomorrow we're doing a webinar, and we're going to share it later as a regular video on this channel at some point, but you can't attend live. But that'll be one of the 17 ways. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to revisit this. How do you automate things with AutoHotkey? Because we've had some client calls and people were trying to automatically jump to using UIA, and it's not always, you know, probably the best choice. It just depends on the circumstances and stuff. So that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow.
I saw somebody saying on the YouTube chat, rest in peace, Joe's large libraries. So you know that you have a lot of libraries in V1. So
yeah, but again, well, I'm not changing them, right? Like,
right, exactly.
V1 and V2. It's just I'm not my new stuff. Which, by the way, share the next exciting news, Isaias.
Regarding the studio, by the way. So AHK Studio, we are finally just few keystrokes away. Yeah, so let me share my screen again. We are a few keystrokes away of having it fully V2 compatible. So right now, one of the things that we were working on, and I usually use MessageBox because it's the easiest one to work with, already gives you the options for V2. It's not the same as V1. In V1, you have 4 parameters. In V2, you have 3. And we already made it so that if you're typing, it now follows which parameter you're at, which was one of the things that was not working last time. And also, if you use it as a function, because you know that a lot of functions in in V2, you can use them as a command and as a function. You can use either or. It will also notice that and give you the correct parameter list. Doesn't matter if you're using it as a command or as a function. This is great. You will notice that now also, if you say true, this brings a point that I wanted to mention regarding the forums. It is good practice that you go ahead and add your requirements on the scripts that you're sharing. So if you're sharing code on the forums, just put what you're using as to avoid confusion.
2 ways. One,
and
in that situation,
I think somebody has the microphone open now.
to preempt that.
Right. Now, not only that, but that if I copy your code and paste it into my in my computer, my launcher knows which one to pick from, because right now V2, if you run the code and you don't tell it what to do, and the code is ambiguous, so this could be run with V1 or V2, it would just go ahead and ask you which one you want to run it with. But if you add your requires directive, as I would really suggest you doing, it doesn't ask you, it just goes ahead and runs it. And this, of course, is a variable right now, so it will display true for 1 for that variable. But if you select V1 instead, that is not an expression, but it is text. So
can you use sorry for interrupting you, can you use the HK version variable?
Yeah, sure. That's right.
Really, so that's the point.
So here we go with the HK version. If it is in V1, you have to force an expression in order to see the contents of the variable. So hold on, AHK version, sorry. So if I do this, run it in V1, I get 1.36.2. If I am in V2, then I don't have to force an expression anymore. And if I run this, it will go ahead and show the version. What I'm doing is just pressing Alt-R, which runs the code automatically. You could also use Alt-M and say run, and you can decide how you want to run it. So you have the V2 32-bit, V2 64, and the one that is V1. It doesn't say V1. I will have to add that. But the ones that are V1 doesn't say V1, but I will add that. But in general, yes, you just make sure to either add your requires directive. Studio is getting closer and closer to being, released. We're just fixing some small details, but everything else should be working as normal. And as soon as we have that, then we're going to go ahead and
just because I've talked to a lot of AHK Studio users, probably ironically more than Maestria, who is the one that created the tool. There's a lot of people who try to use it and they get confused because there's no toolbar, there's no quick see. So I think we're going to build a toolbar as the default that it'll be when we distribute it, at least that it'll have that in there for people, because it is a point of confusion for people. Once you get used to the Omni search and it's there, it's almost all I use. But Maestria just does not like toolbars, so he never included one by default, but they're easy to create.
That is right.
All right, so has anyone got anything they're working on or wanting help with? I saw uautomate posted a little bit of code of the requires and something, but I'm not sure what his point was.
Let's see, he's talking about UIA and the single instance force there.
That was, by the way, in version 2. It just it really set me off when we were doing a video. Isaias and I were doing a video, And I told him, hey, just add the single instance force because it's really annoying to have it keep popping up every time. Then it's like, no, you can just add single instance.
Right.
So I'm like, wait a minute. Like, first off, single instance force should be the default. Why do we have to declare that? Like 99.9% of my scripts are always that. Like, why isn't that? But then he told me, oh, no. Now you can omit the force.
Right. Yeah.
He's an anti-Jedi person. I don't know. But I'm like, what? Why would you change it to where, okay, if you have to still put single instance, but now it goes to like, it doesn't really help at all to me to say you got to add, you don't have to add force. Like,
yeah, I think the idea was that if you're saying single instance, you already set what you want. You don't have to use the word force because you're already saying that you want a single instance. But I agree with you. I think defaults should be, it is one script all the time, unless I want it to be multi, that it could be opened several times. Well, what I think might be is that a single instance, at least the force one, right, doesn't give you any warning that that is happening. If I'm expecting the script to be run multiple times, but I don't get a warning that it was run once, I might get really confused as why the script is not behaving as I want, and it would be a little bit tricky to find out that that's what happening. But again, I think that should be the default. It's highly unlikely that I want to run the same script many times because I'm usually just making a little change and rerunning it. So it's really weird that I want to run the older version and the newest version right away, right? Like,
now I've been using AutoHotkey for roughly 15 years-ish. I can think of, now maybe I've done more than one, but I can think of one script that I purposely didn't do single instance force. But one.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So this is the other thing. And again, about what the target audience is. Most of the people who are doing this type of scripting, they're doing simple scripts. Now, in my case, if I'm doing a very complicated script, I might want to run the same script in different locations, kind of like to fake multi-threading. But how many people are faking multi-threading? Well, right? Like, not many people are doing that.
Well,
so,
and even then, yeah, I would be like, well, then I'll just use AutoHotkey H and do multi.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So uAutomate had mentioned when he has a script that does stuff, and I think it's with UIA, and he minimizes the GUI. When he brings it back up, it has somehow forgotten the elements. And I was saying, from my understanding, with GUIs, when you minimize them to save memory, that's what Windows does, is it destroys all the stuff. Is that right, Isaias?
Right. They're not really in memory as like the normal way. So I cannot say that they're removed from memory entirely, because if you open Process Explorer, you can still see the memory taken. So they're there, but they're not accessible. Now, with UIA, most of the times, 99% of the times, if the control is not visible, sometimes UIA does not have knowledge of that control. So if you minimize a window, you might not be able to access controls. So the window might be either hidden, which you can hide a window or have it on the background and still interact with it. But when it's minimized, a lot of things might go wrong. So usually don't minimize it. That's what I would do. Actually, somebody sent you an email regarding some questions that they had, and they were not sure about joining the free calls because the topics are too advanced. But we have said this before, we are just answering the questions that you guys make. So it doesn't matter the level. It could be a very simple question. It could be a very advanced question. We're going to do our best to try to answer your questions. So don't feel shy. Oh, my question is too basic. Yeah, go ahead and ask it, because you're not the only one. There's a lot of people here that are also at that level and probably don't all know, right? So
in college, I was always the question asker in every class. And it was one of the reasons why. One was I just didn't give a shit what people thought about me, right? If I was dumber. But I also realized after one class, someone said, hey, thanks for asking that question, because I had the same question, but they were embarrassed to ask it. And that's when I realized one is, for the most part, a lot of other people have the same questions you do, right?
Right.
And we're all different. I've just never cared what people think, whether I understand something or not. And so I just don't care. But the other thing is, we all, even when you're advanced, you still often learn little nuggets on basic stuff. So this is why everyone here, we're like, it doesn't matter what level you are, you still can learn from the simplest question or a really advanced question. So yeah, by all means.
Yep.
How to write AutoHotkey's output to CMD terminal console.
Here's one thing. What you want to do is use the standard output. If this is a weird thing, because you would have to use file append to do that, which is weird, because usually the idea of file append is to append to a file. But in the documentation, if I remember correctly, let me pull it up and show it. Right, it could be redirected to the standard output by using the asterisk. Let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, that was one also. When we were digging into Studio, you were looking at something JavaScript had done where you were like, what?
Yeah. Now, this again, I'm defaulting to AutoHotkey V2 because again, we are really recommending going that way, but I think it is the same in V1. And if you go online, you can switch between the two documentations by clicking here. So if whatever you see here is for V1, just go ahead and look for the same thing in V1 and see what it does. But you will see that specifying 2 asterisks for the file name causes text to be sent to the standard error stream. But if you only use one, here it is, specifying an asterisk for file name causes the text to be sent to the standard output, which is the one that you're referring to. So 1 asterisk for standard output, 2 asterisk for the error stream. The error stream is like the debug stream. I don't know if you remember, Joe, that we were using like WinDebug. It was like this sysinternal tool used to catch kind of like errors. And we have, let me see if I have sysinternals debug here. This debug view program, it catches messages that you send to the error stream. So any program that has an issue throws there. If you want to do that, and those errors can only be viewed by a debugger, kind of. If you want to do that, then you can use the 2 asterisks there. So that means if I use file append, and for file name, so I have some text, and for the file name, if I put an asterisk there, that goes to the standard output. And 2 asterisks would cause to go to the error output. So that's how it works. Again, it's a little bit tricky because we don't think about file appending to be something that has to do with the standard output. But if you understand how the standard output works, it makes a little bit more sense. It's kind of like a big file that everybody writes to. That's basically what is going on.
I saw Anthony asked about Lentilist, which I've covered in multiple videos over time, over like webinars and stuff. And it's a really powerful program. You can do a lot with it. It's just to me, it's a bit complicated, and so I just don't use it. But it's got its niche. I believe one of the bigger things is that you can sort of easily store HTML or RTF text and use it as a hotkey or hot string to trigger, to trigger that thing and have it dump that text in there, which a lot of other tools don't do.
Okay. So. That looks, well, similarly to the one that we're creating, like the prompt assistant, because it does basically the same, which is you have some text that you can assign a hotkey to it or a hot string to it, which is the short in Lentilist. The only thing is that we made it very, very simple. So it has some similar functionality, but it looks like this one has more options, which we intentionally removed some options just to make it a little bit simpler.
Zayas, maybe we can demonstrate this as a fun one, just because you and I worked through it on the OCR in the other languages. So was that Anthony again was asking if it can handle other non-English languages.
Yeah, we
I
do
remember
that
we put
in Windows Snipping Tool. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we put it where, well, well, there's two things. One is we put it to point to the libraries of, hey, here's how you can download the OCR language or something, right? That you need. But we also have a hotkey that triggers the text that you do from. Now, see, that's what I don't know. I think it's just English. No, it would be whatever.
No, I think we had it as an option. So let's go ahead and show it.
What's your
And
default
probably, yeah, so you can pick one language, and after you pick it, then it every time you do this translation kind of thing, it goes ahead and defaults to that. So if we go to the Windows Snipping Tool, I have it running. If you right click and go to hotkeys here, you do have one of them that is for, let me just make my screen a little bit bigger, by the way. That way you don't have to squint your eyes too much. So for this guy, we do have the OCR and translate. So we have one for just doing performing the OCR, but we have one to translate it to. So you can select the OCR language. You can choose from the ones that are from Windows. This is actually default on Windows, right? So this is the one that is from the Windows list.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if you select one that's not installed in your system, it
would try to get you to download it. Yes. So that is one. And then if I want to translate it to, which is a different hotkey, in this case, I have Windows Shift to OCR and translate. You can choose a different language, let's say Spanish or whatever. I save it, Windows Shift. So let's go to the forums and let's see Windows Shift. That would perform the OCR. No text was captured. I think that is, I know why it is. It is because of the DPI change that I just did. Let me verify if this fixes that. But I think it's because of the DPI change. Oh, there it is. It captured the text and then sent it to Google Translate, in which it gives me the other language. So again, it is, we already built that into Windows Snipping, but the way how we're translating at this point is just sending it to Google. But the OCR could be set by going to this guy and selecting one of the two. Those are your two hotkeys that controls these guys. So awesome.
And I think that's Windows 10 plus, is that right? For the OCR, if I remember right. I don't think that was
the library that we're using. I think, yes, it is Windows 10 or more.
Yeah, it's crazy fast and pretty darn accurate. I use it a lot just for the Windows Snipping, but even the OCR just comes in really handy at times on stuff you can't grab.
For translating, if you want to do translations on your programs, Windows has this URL structure in which you can select the source language, the target language, and the text that you want to translate. This text must be URL encoded, so be careful with that. But if you do that and pass it to translate.google.com, it just does the translation for you. It's just something that it's a quick way of doing translations instead of going with something more complex.
Well, except for, and I think actually, I'm pretty sure that the OAuth, I don't know if you want to not share your screen. Look at the transcription program, the API that I put in there the other day, right? Because I don't think
transcription that was on Telegram.
Under API, no.
Oh, okay, no, okay. Yeah. Let me look.
So we were adding captions to some of our courses on the Automator, and I was telling Zayas, hey, now that we have these caption files, that unfortunately they don't use SRT files, but whatever, we could also translate the stuff into other languages and put up the other captions as well. Why not, right? And I went to a file that, like, I'd say like 7 or 8 years ago, I had used the Google Translate API, and I just went to the folder and reran something I wrote a long time ago, and it still worked great. Still did the translation for me. It was very cool. I think Thomas was mentioning that was the one where it should be URI encoded, which I didn't do at the time because it was just a test.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah. So this is an API call for using Google Translate. Now I don't have the tokens hidden, right? So that's why it's easy to share. But yeah, it was really easy to use.
You would have to get an API token from Google APIs and so on. It's not difficult.
There's some fees involved, but I don't think I've ever been charged because they have a threshold where it's free. And
you can do a certain amount of calls for free. Now, the only thing that we have to do is the source and target languages, as usual, and the text that we're going to translate. So basically, it's the same thing. The call is really simple, creating the object, opening the URL. The thing here is that all of this is being set up here. That's all. So if you don't need to kind of like have them broken down like this, you can do it right here. And then you just send the request. That's it. And the message box down here just shows whatever it comes back with. Let me go ahead and see. There it goes. So this text right here, hi Jackie, I just created an API call to use Google Translate. How did it do? Then I have it now in Spanish, which, let me see. Yeah, that's really good, actually. The only thing that I wouldn't say is the llamada in here, in this case, because it is the correct translation for the word call, but I wouldn't use that word for an API call. Right, exactly. It's just that the context of API call might be a different.
That's funny.
Right. So it just sounds like if you're making a phone call.
Yeah. Now, to add to this last little bit, just as a point, in the tool, when we were using to get the SRT files or VTT files out of YouTube, so we uploaded our videos to YouTube, the course, and then we have the API calls to download them. AutoHotkey, and also a little bit more with Isaias than with me, but it still got it wrong for me, would sometimes come out like OTTOKEY or a couple other options. So we wrote a program to look across all of our files and basically fix them. Right, to go process them and look for this and replace it with that. So not only like in this example here, where he says like, hey, this call, that really should be a different word. Like, we want to come up with something different there and automate it to make it simple. So yeah, this is the one that we created a list of things that should be removed or changed to something else. And then we just go file by file, and wherever I find it, I just clean the text before I save it again. That's all I do. So again, if you have at any point ideas of, oh, I want to clean stuff, it's just a matter of having a function. It doesn't have to be a function, but it is better to have it as a function. And you just create a key value pair. In V2, we use that as a map. This is the key and this is the value. And I just go one by one and replace them. When I do every loop I just grab the text that you gave me and loop through the text that you gave me, and I say the wrong one and fix it for the other one. So I just replace them. That's it. It's not a big, cleaning text like this is simple, right? But this is the part that would be a little bit different in V1 because you don't need to create kind of like a map. That's just a V2 thing. Does anybody has any questions regarding code that they're working with?
I have a quick V2 related question.
Okay, go.
So can you throw an error directly from inside a fat arrow function?
I think you can. Yeah, sure.
How would you do that?
Just using it. So depending on how, let's take a look at the code and add one. So let's have a GUI main.add button. This button is going to be 75 pixels. The word is going to be okay. And now on event, the event is going to be click. And once you click, I'm going to have a fat arrow function here that is going to throw an error. So now, just by that, I would assume main.show return here. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so I misspelled throw. See? Okay. You cannot do that, but probably I can use it as a function. No. So this is the one.
Why don't you give a 30-second overview of what
Oh.
the fat arrow is also?
Right.
Just 'cause a lot of people
I
probably
will. I'm going to explain what is going on. So what happens is this here just means return. And this is that's the reason why I don't like it when people define a whole function using fat arrows, because fat arrows are just to return a value. So let's say return 2. Whenever I click, just return number 2. That's what it means, really. Now, if I use a message box, for example, like this, what is going on is that the message box is returning something, and that's what is being returned by this function. So now that's the reason why this works, because when I click OK, it's going to return something. The throw does not return anything because it's going to return an error. So what you can do to force it is use parentheses, and let's verify if you can just force it this way. I don't think I can, but because it is still a variable, but I could return 2 and then throw, or the other way around, throw something and return 2. That is something that it is not, let me see, because you can have a function perform multiple actions. Let me see something. So I'm trying to figure out if I could do several actions. So I would have 2, right? I have 2. Now, can I force it to throw an error?
That's the issue I had. I just couldn't make it work, no matter what I tried.
It's because, again, what happens is fat arrow functions are not to define a whole bunch of actions. It's just to define usually one action or a very short, and this is, let me show you exactly what is going on. So you will understand right away what is going on. So let's create a function called show messages, right? Now let's define the function here. The function here has to, I don't care about the things. Now, if I do this, does that make sense to you? Does that make sense that you're returning 0 here at the end?
Geek Dude said, I don't think throw can be used as an expression. It's special, like if
It's not, and this is the interesting part, is where you're putting it. Let me show you, because if I do this, you can do the 2 message boxes. Now check this out. I could put this message box here in the return, and that's okay. So I say yes, okay, and okay. Notice that the return actually showed the message box. I could put a throw statement right about here. And let's just remove this line because it will give me a warning. And now I'm going to throw an error. Hey, an exception was thrown. What you cannot do is return a throw. That is invalid code. And that's the reason why it doesn't work in a fat arrow.
So no boomerangs.
Right. So let me, this is the part, and you said, hey, describe in short what is going on with a fat arrow function. This is the reason why I don't like when people create a whole function in one fat arrow. Here's the thing. Let's convert this code, this one, which is valid, into fat arrow. The first thing you do is that you remove the brackets, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing you do is that the return, specifically the return keyword, you convert it into the arrow. That's what the arrow is the return. And now, once you have it all together, if you don't care about the name, by the way, you can name a fat arrow function if you want, but if you don't care about the name, you can remove the name from it. Now you have a fat arrow function, and instead of having all the code in multiple lines, you can have it in one line and just put the whole thing there. That's what a fat arrow function is. And notice that I just replaced the return with a message box, well, with an arrow. Now let's go back to what it was. So if I want to return a throw, you will see that I'm going to get the same error. So I do this, and I get the following keyword cannot be used as a variable name. You cannot do that even in a normal function. So if I convert this into the fat arrow, so I remove the brackets, and I remove this, and I put it there, I'm going to get exactly the same error. And that is to be expected. You cannot return a throw. That's why. But some people go ahead and create a whole function here. Like they just start adding a lot of things, message box 1, comma, message box 2, message box 3. And they forget that the whole thing that you're doing here is actually a return. And this code is going to fail too. Do you know why? Can you guess why this is going to fail? This code should fail. I would find it interesting if it works. If I run it, here, you get a function and not a string. Why? Easy. Because again, you cannot return, check this out, you cannot return message box like this. You can't. If you're going to use the message box, you have to use it as a function like this. As I'm not using it as a function, it breaks. So when you're doing this, like fat arrow defining a bunch of things inside, you have to understand that the syntax is totally different. And yeah, that's going to confuse a lot of people. Now, if you make everything functions, now it's going to work fine. But again, that's why I really just avoid that, because there's a lot of tricky stuff going on if you're defining a whole bunch of things inside a fat arrow. Fat arrows is just usually for one action, or it's just to avoid you having to define my function down here. Like this. That's the fat arrow is just to avoid having to write 4 lines of code for just one value. At this point, if I just gonna write 4 lines of code for one value, I might as well just say, hey, return true here. That's it. It's just like the same thing. Then this is gone. That's all there is to fat arrows. But I know I don't like it in JavaScript. People abuse the fat arrow functions a lot. Actually, everything is fat. Like they define whole scripts in one fat arrow function. And I think people are going to do the same in V2. People are going to start creating big functions just with a fat arrow. But yeah, then you have to know about these little details. That is a return statement. So what you have to do is everything that you could do with a return.
You like fat arrows, you don't like obese arrows, is what you're telling me.
Basically.
And uautomate also asked about using the warn command, option, I guess I'll say. Is it a directive?
A directive, yes.
And should you use it in V2? I was just saying, V2 is much stricter than V1, so you get a lot of warnings anyway.
Yeah, I think you're going to use it the opposite way of how you're using it in V1. In V1, you use the warn to warn you about stuff, right? Because AutoHotkey V1 doesn't warn you about almost anything. In V2, you would use the warn to stop warning you about certain things. So you would use it exactly the opposite. So if you take a look at the documentation regarding those, so if we go to the documentation, both do the same, enables or disables warnings. In V2 and in V1, it is the same, enables or disables warnings. The difference is how they default. V1 defaults to not warning. V1 defaults to not warning you about anything, so you would have to enable stuff that you want to be warned about. V2 is the opposite. It warns you about almost anything, and then you want to disable something.
One stupid gotcha. This is stupid just because I wasn't used to it, but I think most of us know in V1, when you get any of those errors, you can just Ctrl+C on the thing and it gets copied to the clipboard. But in V2, you mentioned, you're like, yeah, well, those aren't message boxes, right? They're not,
right.
They're different types of windows. So you can select the text. So you can select what you want, but it doesn't just by, like I would have said by default, select, do everything.
Right. So let's do this. Let's do V1 here. What? Oh, because this is now. Let's do that. So this is an error in V1, and this is a message box. That's the reason why you cannot select text from here. But if you have it selected and you press Ctrl+C, when you go ahead and paste, now you have the whole message box selected, including the title and the OK button, which this works in any message box from any program at any point. So this is not just errors. It's any message box you can do this. So if you get a message box from any program, you can do this. Now, V2, on the other hand, let me close this up. V2, on the other hand, that is not a message box. This looks like a message box, and this is what we were talking about on the Heroes call a few weeks ago. You could fake a message box yourself. I showed you how to do that, but this is not a message box. So the default action of selecting and saying Ctrl+C is not going to do anything. My clipboard is still there. So let me copy this, do Ctrl+C here, and you will notice that my clipboard is still the old one. Now you would have to select all. You can click on it, select all, and copy, which you can do. But now you have an additional step, which is selecting all before copying, right? But you can still do that. That's not a problem. With the additional step, that's all.
I do like the highlighting, though, is really nice.
Right. It is.
And the show call stack. So now you have debugging stuff, right, that can help you.
Well, this is, as soon as you start using the call stack more and more, you realize how good it is. I actually, with the prompt assistant tool, I get into the situation that I have a function that calls a library that has a function that calls another function. And when I get some errors, I'm like, how the heck did I get there? Like, how did that happen? And that gives me kind of like a little overview of what happened, where I'm at.
Right.
And yeah.
So that brings up one other really quick topic I just want to mention, because we were working on our tool, the prompt assistant thing, and we were having a problematic thing. And I happened to be on a call with Maestria talking about Studio. And I said, hey, by the way, we're working on this other thing. And, how do you go about doing this? And he told us, oh, in SQL, there's actually a SQL call for recursively calling things.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I didn't even, to me in my brain, that wouldn't even be something SQL would ever do. So I never thought to search for it. But my point to you guys is this why it's really important to talk to other people about what you're doing, because other people have different knowledges or different assumptions, right? And it never dawned on me to even look for that as a thing in SQL. I was really surprised.
That is right.
And then I saw Colo, I think someone answered it, but they were asking about basically jumping to a library in VS Code where you have an include to a library. Was Control left click, does that jump to it?
That's one, or F12. You can do F12, and you could do so for, it's not only for files. If you have a function and you click on the function and hit F12, it goes to the definition of the function. It doesn't matter which file it is, so long as it is inside the same project. And the same with variable definitions. If you want to know where this variable was defined, you can just click on it and So for example, if I click here and I hit F12, it would jump to the definition of that variable. So I'm down here, hit F12, it jumps there. Same with clean.
Said it's not working. Can you actually demo it and show what you're doing just to?
I'm sharing my screen. I don't know if you guys can see it.
I'm sorry.
So
Well,
let me open prompt assistant, because it would be a little bit easier for us to see that in action. Let me make this a little bit smaller, remove this, remove that. So one of the things, it works only if the files that contain the information are inside your view here on the folder that you're working with, or if you opened the file, because that way the Lexer does that. Now, quick thing, this only works in the V2 Lexer. The V1 Lexer doesn't have that. Another reason why is why I jumped to it. Now, check this out. I only have prompt assistant open. I do have a SQLite library down here. This library is in my folder here, right? So the file is there. It has been read by the Lexer. When I open the folder, it reads all the files. If I select it and hit F12, it jumps to it.
And what's the hotkey for bringing up help? Remind me, I know you.
Control F1 goes ahead and opens the help. On the selected word, it just grabs the word and put it on the file. So if I want to know a static, I don't even have to select it, just hovering over it and just hit F1.
And is that just a V2 or is that for V1 or V2?
In V1, it opens the help file, but doesn't look for the word. In V2, it grabs the word and goes ahead and opens it. So the Chinese guy that is working on this is really good at trying to add packing as many functions as he can into the Lexer. But the V1 guy, he just did it because it was fun for him. So he's not really adding stuff. He's slower about adding stuff to it. So that's how it works.
So he's human.
Yeah,
the other guy you said
the other guy doesn't even sleep. That guy, I don't know how the heck he does it, but he doesn't even sleep. But for example, this is interesting. If the thing was not found, it would show you where that has been used. So that's something that, again, there's a lot of things that you would be like, here, I'm at the bottom of the script. I say, hey, what, let me see, hold on. Let me get one of the GUIs here. So I'm here and I say, hey, where is that GUI thing defined? I hit F12 and it jumps to it and it tells me, oh, that was defined right about here. But again, the files must be read by the Lexer. They have to be on the same location, or you have to have the file open. As soon as you open a file, it reads it as well. So it has to be lexed before this working, and only works with the V2 Lexer.
All right, we got 10 minutes left. Chinese man does not sleep a lot. He just seems to be in crazy active from talking to Isaias.
Oh God, every time I open my email, I find 6-7 emails from him that he fixed one thing, fixed the other. And I'm like, dude, do you spend the whole day and night fixing stuff?
uTomate said in V2 it doesn't open the doc in my VS Code. Can you just mention again the
right?
Because there's several for V2, right? And there's a certain one I know you like.
Right. So first, make sure that you are using the one that was created by Tigbee. This is the one that does everything that I have been mentioning. That's the first thing. Second of all, make sure that the open file, so help, let me see, help. So if you do this open help, you should take a look at what is it defaulting to. Now, I think if I look at AutoHotkey V2, so these are the things for V2, quick help. This one is set up to Ctrl+F1. So make sure that it is actually set to that and that no other hotkey is interfering with it, because that's the other thing. You might have something that is interfering
Yeah.
with that particular hotkey, or change it to whatever you want. You can make it F1 if you want, whatever. So you either select the word, Control F1, it jumps and opens that particular selected word. If it is there, it will find it. If it's not there, it would just be red, and you will have to manually search for
I'm
it.
going to have my F1 pull up ChatGPT and, just
Remember that we have a ChatGPT extension in VS Code, so it is right here, and I could use it for asking it stuff directly in VS Code.
I don't know if everyone here saw it, but the other day I now have access to Bing's, new version, and I did see something else confirming that one, at least right now, says it's using ChatGPT 4. And when we tried to get it to do some V2 code with a GUI, it did provide V2 code. It got it wrong, but it was close. But we were really excited to see actually it providing V2 code at all, because we tried a lot with ChatGPT 3 and we couldn't get it to do anything.
That seems to be ChatGPT's specialty. It got it wrong, but it was close.
So I'll take it. Yeah,
especially when I'm trying to buy stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the amount of time it saves getting started. That's what I tell people too. Just use it to get started, right? Because especially humans are really bad at writing stuff, because we try to edit while we write and try to fix it all.
Yeah.
But just ask a question, get a bunch of stuff, and then go back and edit and revise, and it just saves a lot of.
I tried for about 2 days to learn how to use a JavaScript library, and finally I just went to ChatGPT and I told it I want a page that does this thing, and it took me about 4 or 5 hours to get it to go through and fix it enough and make it do all the things I wanted. But that's a lot faster than me trying to learn a language.
Right.
So.
Isaias, that's the website we got to create. We got to create let me ChatGPT that for you. Right, let me Google that for you. Here's a website.
Yeah, that's true. That's the one that we have to create now. Let me ChatGPT that for you. Actually, you know what? At some point, that Google became a verb. Let me Google that for you. Maybe we will have. Let me GPT that for you.
Yeah, it definitely will. That's the unfortunate part, is it's just so freaking hard to say. ChatGPT 3, like, come on. But at least Google was it Bard? I think
but I would just remove the chat out of it and just say, let me GPT that for you.
Yeah.
Let me Jeep that. Yeah, let me Jeep that. Somebody was asking on the chat if we watched the Oliver report about AI. I haven't watched it. But I guess everybody's talking about it now. So, the Oliver report. Oliver is a guy, I think is kind of like a late night show or something like that. That is very famous in certain parts. I guess he's referring to that one. And he usually grabs a topic, a very interesting topic, and dives into it, like 20-minute dives. But I haven't taken the time to watch that one in particular. But to mention something that Joe and I were talking about, most companies are actually jumping the gun on that. And even I actually, let me share my screen real quick. I mentioned that, I don't know if anybody here uses WikiWand. So if you go ahead and look for Wiki Gravity, for example, whatever, I have an extension that grabs any Wikipedia page and turns it into what is called WikiWand, which is a different page, but it just changes the layout and stuff into something a little bit easier to follow and so on. But then I noticed, hey, here at the top, it says, hey, dear WikiWand AI. And I was like, I didn't notice when they put that in. So many companies are going to be using AI in many locations. So yeah, it's good to be informed. It's good to know how to use it, because a lot of companies are going to start working with that. Now, even we just have like 5 minutes left. I just want to, for some of you, know that in the next call, we are going to be talking about certain things. If I remember correctly, Joe, we're going to be talking about, first of all, the scope in V2, the changes about it. And we're going to review one of the scripts that one of the guys in the AHK Heroes sent that has some details that people will not know about the auto execute section in V2, how it changes. So those are topics that we're going to be covering soon with the guys on the AHK Heroes group. I hope that you guys can make it. And yeah,
we got 2 more hours of that after this.
that's right. We're going to stay here for a little while.
But yeah, thank you all for being here. Is there any other really quick questions? Anything
or comments?
Thank you, Guy.
Guy didn't do anything.
Guys.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. We're plugging along, and we're gonna have some cool tools here coming out pretty soon. Actually, there was another one, that we're working on, is the a script that will evaluate how hard it will be to convert a script from V1 to V2. Should be a fun and an overall simple thing.
That is right. Oh, for anybody who is using the AutoHotkey toolkit, I fixed the issues that we had with the preferences GUI looking really funny when you change your DPI settings. I haven't really released it yet because I'm testing it. I'm using it and see if I catch any errors. But soon I will have an update and let you guys know.
So if you're making a tool that can evaluate how difficult it'll be to convert to V2, wouldn't it just be one tiny larger step to go ahead and convert it automatically?
Oh no, not at all.
No,
those are 2 different topics. We will discuss that in the heroes call because in 3 minutes we cannot just go over it. But I will give you an idea of what is going on and why that would not be really possible. But
yeah, and there are, we've released our version of it, so which is actually right now it's very applicable because there's a V1 to V2 converter, but that requires you download the file and have it local and then push it through it. Our tool allows you to select text. So this would be on a web page, like on the forums. You could select it and just run it, and it'll convert what's selected, which at times is really handy to see what's the equivalent, right?
Right.
But to Zay's point, like there's different things. Sometimes, GUIs and DLL calls and other things are much harder to convert than other things. Besides the length of the script itself, there's a lot of things that weigh into it, but this should make it, again, we don't recommend you actually converting most of your stuff unless you only have 2 or 3 scripts. Then it probably makes sense to keep them all in one version, but we're not converting all of our stuff. There's only a couple that we're going to convert and just leave it all in V1 and just keep them both.
Yeah, that's right.
All righty. Well, thank you all for being here. We'll
Bye,
see
guys. See you next time.
Next week. Yeah. And Heroes, see you in the other call. Bye.
Bye.